A reading from the book of Genesis. Now the man knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have produced a man with the help of the Lord. Next she bore his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain a tiller of the ground. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel for his part brought of the firstlings of his flock, their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. The Lord said to Cain, Why are you angry, and why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is lurking at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must master it. Cain said to his brother Abel, Let us go out to the field. And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, Where is your brother Abel? He said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? And the Lord said, What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground. And now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it will no longer yield to you its strength. You will be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. Cain said to the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Today you have driven me away from the soil, and I shall be hidden from your face. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and anyone who meets me may kill me. Then the Lord said to him, Not so. Whoever kills Cain will suffer a sevenfold vengeance. And the Lord put a mark on Cain, so that no one who came upon him would kill him. Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and named him Seth. For she said, God has appointed for me another child instead of Abel, because Cain killed him. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Offer to God a sacrifice of praise. Offer to God a sacrifice of praise. The mighty one, God the Lord, speaks and summons the earth from the rising of the sun to its setting. Not for your sacrifices do I rebuke you. Your burnt offerings are continually before me. Offer to God a sacrifice of praise. What right have you to recite my statutes, or take my covenant on your lips? For you hate discipline, and you cast my words behind you. Offer to God a sacrifice of praise. You sit and speak against your kin. You slander your own mother's child. These things you have done, and I have been silent. You thought that I was one just like yourself, but now I rebuke you and lay the charge before you. Offer to God a sacrifice of praise.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. The Pharisees came to Jesus and began to argue with him, asking him for a sign from heaven to test him. And he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, "Why does this generation ask for a sign? Truly, I tell you, no sign will be given to this generation." And he left them, and getting into the boat again, he went across to the other shore. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, we continue with this, as the scholars say, liturgical scholars, semi-continuous reading of the book of Genesis. We're working our way through the early chapters of the book of Genesis, and today we arrive at the story of Cain and Abel, of the first murder. And if we look at the book of Genesis as a whole, we can see in it, and in the rest of the Old Testament as well, in fact, in the rest of the scriptures in their entirety, we can see a story with a dividing line. It begins, of course, with creation, the story which we have been hearing for the last little while, and the story of the fall, which we heard very recently, the choice of the man and the woman, the first man and woman, to go their own way rather than the way that God had called them and commanded them. And we see then in the rest of the book of Genesis, the first 11 chapters of the book of Genesis, we see the working out of that choice. And today we see this first murder. There is at this time, so far as we know from Scripture, Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel in all the world. And yet Cain and Abel are not able to live together in peace, or at least Cain is not. And so we see the impact of this choice of self over God working itself out, even in the earliest days of the human race. And it continues through the first 11 chapters of Genesis until the moment when God calls Abram, soon to become Abraham. God chooses in and through Abraham, to raise up for himself a people. And it is from that people, of course, who ultimately comes our Savior, Jesus Christ. So things begin good, they fall apart, and they continue to fall apart. And then at a certain point, God says, well, let's begin the work of making things right. And he begins it with Abraham. But this story of Cain and Abel shows us very poignantly and very clearly the impact of choosing self over God. It can lead to all sorts of evil in the world and in our lives. And it still does today. We, through Christ's self-offering on the cross, our participation in the gifts that victory that won for us through baptism, have been washed away of that stain of original sin, but its impact remains in us, in our own tendencies towards self, towards selfishness, towards pride, towards anger, towards all those weaknesses, all those sinful tendencies in our lives. And it was no less so at the time of Jesus himself. In this very short gospel passage today, we see the Pharisees coming to Jesus and beginning to argue with him. Well, you and I would say, why argue with the one who has done these great works? In fact, the last three stories in Scriptures immediately prior to this are the feeding of the 4,000, the healing of the casting out of the demon from the child of the Syrophoenician woman, and the healing of a man who was deaf and mute, who was unable to hear and unable to speak. So Jesus has been going about healing, demonstrating his power, performing great wonders, the feeding of the 4,000. All of this has happened, all of this is known, all of this has been spoken about. And yet the Pharisees come to Jesus and begin to argue with him, asking him for a sign. Give us a sign, they say. This is utter insanity. Jesus has been going about healing, teaching, performing great wonders, and they come and say, give us a sign. One of the authors that I was reading about this passage in the gospel says that really, in a certain sense, they are taking the place of Satan in the temptation in the desert, right? Give me a sign. Do something even more wonderful. Prove to me that you are really the Son of God. Give me a sign. Now, we, so many years later, probably, we hope, at least, would not do exactly that, but don't we do something similar to that in our own life? Because this call for a sign, in a certain sense, if we interpret it in the context of our own spiritual life, isn't it a call for the Lord to remove every possibility of doubt and uncertainty from our relationship with Him? Make it impossible for me not to believe in you. Give me a sign. Force me to believe in you. That is, in essence, what they're asking of the Lord. And sometimes, in our own life of faith, we do something very, very similar. We place tests before the Lord. We ask Him to do something for us, so that we might believe. We would say that we might believe more deeply. That would be the way you and I would probably put it, so that we might fully believe, so that all doubts might be cast aside. But again, we're asking the Lord to do our work for us. Our work is to trust in Him, to enter openly to Him, to surrender into relationship with Him. And that is a choice that only we can make. God can't make it for us. God gives us that gift of faith first through baptism, the faith of the church. We say when we baptize children, when we baptize anyone, we say, this is the faith of the church. It is God's gift, it's true. But ultimately, to make that faith our own is a choice that only we can make. To ask anything of God beyond what He has already given us, what He has already shown us, what He has already done for us, is to take the place of the great tempter. Remove all doubt. Remove my doubt. Force me to believe in you, so that I have no choice but to believe. But of course, if I have no choice but to believe, that is not ultimately belief, because it's not my choice. I'm not acting in freedom. We're called to trust in the one who made us, the one who loves us, the one who walks with us through each day of our life. And He does many great works in my life and in your life if our eyes are open. If we're aware that He is the source of everything that is. So, as we celebrate this sacrament today, we ask for the grace, be it through our active participation in this sacrament here in this church, or be it through our prayerful participation from a distance. We ask for the grace to be able to open our hearts to the Lord, to trust in Him, and not to demand a sign, not to demand that the Lord does our work for us.